Serbon's campaign. The great military leader Serbo-Makeridov created the Second World Empire. We have seen from the works and speeches of Alexander the Great that both he personally and the Serbs of his time were well acquainted with the second campaign from Europe to Asia, which, according to legend, was led by god Serbon. It should be immediately understood that this is, as the previous case, a great military leader who they declared a deity. His real name is Serbo-Makeridov, who is also mentioned as Sarbo or Sardo, which is in modern Serbian language would be Serbo. In Izorod, Holy Scripture, it is said, Cush also gave birth to Nebrod. He was the one who began to be strong on earth. He was a perfect hunter before the Eternal. That is why it is said, like Nebrod, a giant hunter before the Eternal. He ruled over Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Callan in the land of Sennar. That is all about Nebrod, which we have already talked about. This is Nino, Bak, and the first big campaign. It is further stated in Izorod, Assur came out of this land. He built Nineveh, Rehoboth-Hir, Kalach, and Resen between Nineveh and Kalach. It is a great city. From the Holy Scriptures, we see that Nebrod, in fact, from the first very kingdom of Nebrod, another person appears here called Assur, and he builds the mentioned cities. The first thing that attracts attention is that Assur is building the city of Nineveh, the city of Nino. By naming this city, the Holy Scriptures confirm the name of Nino and at the same time tell us that Assur gave it a special honor. All this means that Assur was not an opponent of Nino, nor an opponent of his family, nor of his First World Empire, but he appears as a successor of Nino's work. This is the first evidence from the Bible that Nino and Assur are the same kind. Otherwise, Assur would not have named his city Nineveh. Now, all we have to do is take it a step further and find Assur in a genus of Nino. In the other corner of our triangle stands Alexander the Great, who confirms in word and deed what derives from the Holy Scriptures and who introduces us in more detail to the second campaign, also from Serbia all the way to India. Alexander finds Serbs in India and they tell him that they are descendants of warriors from the second campaign. At the third corner of the triangle stands Assyria, which received that name from the time of the second campaign, that is, from the time of creation of the second kingdom. This second kingdom is really called Assyrian in history, which is immediately associated with the Old Testament name Assur. By closing our triangle and establishing the connection and causality between the Holy Scriptures, Alexander the Great, and Assyria, we inevitably come to the conclusion that Assur was the second great military leader mentioned by name in Izirod, and whose name is woven in the name of Assyria. We learn from Alexander the Great that the other conqueror was god Serbon, whom the Greeks call Heracles and Romans Hercules and Jews Melkart. This is how we get the equation. Serbo-Makeridov equals Serbon equals Assur. Let's say right away that Serbon did not get his name after Serbs, but Serbs after Serbon, which there will be talk about elsewhere. The god Serbon and his role were written about for the first time in the first volume of History of Serbs. Here we give only a brief account of that deity. The name of Serbon is found in several forms depending on the place, language and time in which it is mentioned. Serbon, Serban, Serdon, Serdan, Sardon, Sardan, Surbon, Sandon, Sanda, Sandan, Sandes, Serapis, Sorapis, Sarapis, Sardus, Sancus, Santus, Sabazius, Sabadius, Sebadius, Sarmandus, Surya, and Assur. Given that Serapis had a special role in time of luggage in Egypt, the use of his name would not be correct in relation to original role of this deity. Jupiter had a name with the Romans, Saravicus, which is Sarabicus. Nicola Yorga says, in the beginning, Sabazios was the head of the gods, who is nothing but Dionysus, Sanctus, Sabadius, Sebadius. Sabazius is the Greek form of the name of that god, which was widely celebrated on Helm and in Asia Minor and then in Italy. Sabazius was a sun deity, and his temple is round in shape and half-open roof so that the sun can illuminate the interior of the temple, built usually on some hill. From these examples of Yorga, the real name of God is revealed. Sabadius is Serbon Dios, or Serbon Deus, which is Serbon Div, or Serbon God. The Greek form of Sabazius is Serbon Dios or Serbon Divus, shorter Sarbodios. Yorga tells us that in Dacia there was a god named Sarmandus, from whom Mommsen compared to Serapis, that is the same god, only his name is mentioned differently. Mommsen was right here because the Greeks usually replaced Serbian B with M, as is the name Sarbati, Sarmati. In modern Greek, the letter B is written as MP or M added P in order to know that these two letters should be read as B. Ezekiel tells us that in ancient Macedonia, the goddess Serbona was the same as Artema among the Greeks. In various editions of Ezekiel, Serbon is also mentioned as Serbona is also mentioned as Serbina or Sirbona. This is a proof that in Old Macedonia, in addition to god Serbon, there was also the goddess Serbona, who is among Greeks Artema. Another goddess, Pella, Aphrodite, Pelagia, entered in Christianity as Holy Pelagia, as Saint Pelasgia. Eusebius says that Hercules from Phoenician Syria came to Cappadocia, to Ellison, and was called Disandan. Disandan is Div Sandon or Div Serbon. In the Middle East, the deity Zervan Akarana is mentioned as representative of eternity. This Zervan is Serban. It should be noted that the name of the gods of all Serbs usually ended in on, and the name of the goddess is in ona, meaning he and she in Serbian. So there was a divine couple, Serbon and Serbona. As a deity, Serbon is a distinct representative of the sun, the embodiment of the sun's creative and protective power. He has a role of protector of human race, order and law, and as such he is a protector of rulers, kings and emperors. It appears as a spiritual father of all rulers and their role model. Pa-Serb was a future of Slavic lords, which can be compared to Latin sorbus, which can mean red. Sirbis, Xanthos and Skamandros respectively indicate the color red. The color red, Racha, in ancient times was a future of the upper class and nobility. Sirbis or Serbis is the same as Xanthos because Greeks translated the Serbian name with Xanthos. In fact, Xanthos is the co-name for Serbs. We will talk about that in more detail elsewhere. Serbon is depicted as a powerful giant who kills or strangles a lion and is always clad in a lion's fur. The lion is a personification of wilderness and violence, the king of beasts. When Serbon drowns in defense of the human race from wilderness and violence. That is why Serbon has the nickname The strangler, the one who strangles the lions. Davlia, in a figurative way, every other attack on human race. Herodotus says that the Greek title of Kandavle the Greeks called Myrsilo. Kandavle in Judea was the same as Davitel, which is the strangler, a divine symbol worn by rulers from the Sandonic dynasty or the dynasty of Serbonich.